wrong when he was running.
Education under our federal constitution is a fundamental right by the system. Man believe that an educated population.
I start tonight's talk out about students of color living in poverty with my own experience as a child of a houseless family of a poor woman of color who is Puerto Rican. I had to stay home to take care of her because that's my cultural values. And the school system did not allow for a culture that would support a child who had to take care of their mother, who had to work, which is in my case what was going on, which is very common in different families, in different communities, in different cultures. There's all kinds of different things that happen to students that are not part of a Eurocentric Western concept of education. So when we talk about recognizing optimal measures and clear definitions of educational achievement, reflecting of experiencing one's right to education, it's important that we look through a different lens about what education is, what it can be, and what it needs to be for students of color living in poverty. So one of the things that we've done with Justice Matters is the Policy Institute working on racial justice and education policy, is to root policy in community vision. We actually launched a study with the School Redesign Network, who Lydia Darlingham is part of it, we're going to be hearing from in a minute, that looked at high schools for equity, 5 schools across the state that were serving children of color living in poverty and actually serving them in a way that embraced their cultures and engaged their languages and incorporated social justice, and in effect changed the ways that optimal measures are actually provided to students. We wanted to learn from schools that were intentionally seeking to provide students of color a learning experience that embraced their strengths and supported their growth in a culturally relevant and caring way. Justice Matters, we understand that these are qualities that are necessary for an authentic and academically rigorous education, and wanted to develop ideas on how policy could help create the environment necessary for those schools to flourish. And as we scan the research literature that's out there around schools and school policy, we quickly learned that policy studies focusing on the success of students of color were based on narrow definitions of success itself. And success of students of color is actually, from our perspective, didn't include social and racial justice values. When studies are centered around academic outcomes that value test scores as the single measure of success, then the recommendations that follow do not tell us anything about policies that can support and enable schools to embrace the strengths of students of color and provide and educate in a culturally relevant way. So one of the things that we looked at locally were schools such as High School for Equity, Junior High School for Equity, Leadership High School in San Francisco, both of whom are models of different types of educational values. There's alternative measures, for instance, to the graduation that are not based on standardized testing, or what we would call high-stakes testing, that takes in nothing to do with the learning experience of a student, actually, of any student. So they have alternate measures of success, alternate measures that even look at the students' values and cultures that they bring with them, that their families bring with them, that they bring with them into the classroom. The other thing that's important about this is we looked at a multi-tiered search process and really checked into, again, a different notion of what optimal measures are. So the other important piece of this, as we're looking at optimal measures, is to think about, as you all launch this concept, which I thank you, the Human Rights Commission, for doing, is to change your value system of what are optimal measures. And I think that that's one of the main things that the superintendent is bringing in, and I'm really excited about that. The second point I've asked to speak on is why all community members need to be involved, the significance of public involvement in achieving optimal education. So from our perspective at Justice Matters, again, we're looking at the community vision as a success model for supporting a student through school. Like the previous speaker from ACLU spoke about, you can't talk about a student of color living in poverty without talking about housing, without talking about social justice, without talking about spiritual values, without talking about where the child is really at. So one of the things that we believe and we hope that that this hearing brings up is the extremely vital role that community plays in the success of the student. In the June Jordan School for Equity, one of the things that happens that's so amazing about it is that they organize parents on campus to be an integral part of the school experience for the children, as opposed to what's very commonly done in most Western sort of Eurocentric models of school success, which is to separate out the parents, to devalue parent voice. But rather in this model at June Jordan, it's actually to not only integrate it, but to actually uphold it and embrace it. So it's a different way of including community, of including parent voice, and of community, actually inclusion as a model of success. So I just want to close by thanking you all, and I know most of you didn't hear my poem in the beginning, but the crucial piece on that is to hear that there's different forms of scholarship, and the different forms of scholarship are what a true policy lens needs to be informed by. Thank you.